Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of What We Do in the Shadows, Manhattan Nightclub. And this was a pretty good episode. I liked what they did with trying to advance the whole takeover New York City aspect and just giving us kind of more lore on the vampires in the area, while also just giving us a fun little gag kind of joke going through with this hat that Laszlo owns. So the episode starts off and we get an update on Jenna, the woman that Nadja has decided to turn into a vampire. And this is a pretty effective cold open where we see that her roommate is trying to get her like medicine and everything, but she's dead pretty much at this point. We see a fly crawl across her eye, which was creepy as shit, and whoever did the effects for it, you're good on it, man. That looked like a fly walking across her eyeball, and she's the whole joke for that bit is she's trying to run down all of the information on the medicine that she got, trying to pronounce it and all that, but then she starts to notice that, her roommate's dead. And then she tries to get Siri to call 911, and it doesn't work, and we then shift and see that the paramedics are arrived. She's frantically trying to explain everything that happened. They're like, okay, you kind of need to go talk to your dorm advisor because you're freaking the fuck out. And they're about to get her into the ambulance when she fucking just rocks on up and says, oh, sorry guys, sorry. And they're all freaking out. The one paramedic dude's like, I checked your vitals 3 times. She's like, no, I'm okay. And they're like, you really fucking are not. And she just gets back into the building, but just seeing everybody's reactions and just that she's pretty much in that in-between phase of being like pretty much dead, but yet she's walking in sunlight, so that's kind of cool to see this vampire transforming right in front of our eyes. So I can't wait to see where the next step is, because Nadja's gonna have to get involved at some point, otherwise she's pretty much gonna accidentally out vampires, I guess, to the wider world before they're ready to, take control as they want. So I'm glad we got that little update. But we then check back in with our housemates and we see that they control like 2 streets of Staten Island, and they come up with the idea to go and meet with the vampire that had come with them to the new world, Simon the Devious. You're not gonna really have to look hard to see that this isn't gonna go exactly well with a dude named Simon the Devious. We then also get some funny kind of gags with there's like an actual dude that was like a clever dude, but he tripped on his cape and fell into some stakes. I kind of like that as they're going through and being like, oh, okay. So they decide to go over there, and while they're figuring out what to do, because they're going, okay, the club that he owned usually had capes and everything, but that was in the 1920s, so they have not checked in with this club or this dude for a while. So they decide, all right, I'll do this. And Laszlo decides to use this cursed witch's hat because he likes it. It's made out of witch's skin, and all kinds of bullshit happens with this hat. Nadja's like, fucking get rid of it. And every time she tries to get rid of it, it just keeps coming back. One time, literally crawling back. So I'm like, okay, what crazy shit's gonna happen with this hat? Well, just within the house, it kills their new familiar with a bookcase, and Laszlo falls through the floor, and thereby alerting Colin to them going to the nightclub and putting himself on there as well. So, yes, his head is cursed, and Laszlo should fucking get rid of it. This then leads our group to diverge into 2 paths. We have Nandor and Guillermo and Colin going through by boat, whereas Guillermo is fucking rowing the boat. I'm like, god damn, this kid's getting fucked. I mean, he does all this shit. I mean, granted, we did get a little skit where Nandor was like holding him up like he was flying, but I mean, he's been his familiar for 10 years and thought it was 2. He's very Michael Scottish in this sense. So they're doing it that way. Nadja and Laszlo are taking a cab, and she's all just hounding him, being like, the hat's doing it. And he's like, you're not gonna get me to get rid of this hat. Screw that. But they eventually get to the place, and of course, Nandor and Colin and his group arrive first and are just kind of mingling around and all that. But we see that Laszlo's Kate got stuck in the taxi and he got dragged down because of the hat, because of the curse on it. And I'm just like, I can't deal with this bullshit. And just seeing her exasperated and just being like, trying to be smart about the hat and of trying to like get an alliance going is just, I empathize with her frustration there. So we see that Nandor and them are just kind of like milling around. Yeomore's trying to find the restroom, cheekily pointing out that there's a sex room, and finding the familiar room, where all the familiars gather. He's talking with one of them, and evidently there's like a newsletter that he's not privy to, talking about how he's been a familiar for, of course, 10 years, and the dude's like, wow, that's a long-ass time. And he's like, hey, where's the restroom? And to show how shittily treated the familiars are, they just get 2 buckets. And there's also a cat named Salmon there as a familiar as well, which we see. It's just adding shit onto Yeomore. I'm like, oh god, he really doesn't have a good vampire boss, now does he? So we see that Nandor is just kind of like working the room, chatting up this nice lady, and of course, Colin comes in and cockblocks him, pretty much doing his vampire feeding thing, and Nandor's trying to stop him from that. Of course, the lady's gone, and when he turns around, Colin's gone, and he just looks at the camera like, what the fuck? And, yeah, I feel for Nandor. He was going to be evidently adjoined with this vampire. Well, this vampire was asking about if he was adjoined to anybody else. It's like, oh, okay. We could learn some more stuff about that. Hopefully we do. I kind of like these little peeks, but Nadja eventually gets in there. Laszlo's like, why is everybody dressed like this? And then trying to make fun of them, even though they're the ones that are improperly dressed, and he just kind of goes off. Nadja is able to find Simon the Devious, and he's shooting like flaming arrows and everything, and he finally notices her, shoots the arrow off, and we hear that it takes someone out of frame. They start catching up, and of course, one of his people brings in their bottle service, which is just a naked guy on a tray of ice with sparklers everywhere. I'm like, yep, that would totally be vampire bottle service. He then berates them for bringing it and just decides to talk to her, wants to catch up with Nandor and Laszlo. We eventually get them together, and Simon just goes through all of his vampire posse, which works out pretty well. I mean, it's just a kind of gag little thing, but we get to see some cool effects with certain looks of what certain people look like. We had also seen this before Nandor was brought in, because a vampire was trying to get ready to eat Yeomore, and he looked fucking freaky as shit, and I was like, holy shit, there we go. But Yeomore was not happy with how Nandor handled the situation and decided to bust off, and I'm like, good for you. I mean, granted, we're only like 4 episodes in, but even though you do everything for your master, he puts forth the bare minimum to help you. And he just like had enough of it. I'm like, good on you, man. I didn't know if he was going to try and find someone else to turn him into a vampire, because that's a pretty big sticking point. So we'll kind of have to see if we get to that point, because it would be interesting if this goes to the effect that Yeomore decides enough is enough, no matter what Nandor does, and finds someone else to turn him into a vampire. So we see that they bring up the concept of having an alliance, and of course, Simon's like, wait a minute, I've got like Manhattan, and you've got like 2 streets. I'm like, alright, fine. I'll do it if you give me the hat. Laszlo, of course, is just adamant about not giving up the hat. It's just like a point of pride for him, and that he really likes the hat and everything. He's like, you can take it off, like, by cutting my head off, you bastard, pretty much. And he's like, alright, I'll get to it. But they're like, no, fine. They give it up to him. He's like, what's that thing sucking on my head? It's like, oh, that's the, witch's asshole. I'm like, yeah, of course a hat made out of witch skin would have a witch's asshole sewn into it. And then he pretty much tells him to get the fuck out of his hat, get the fuck out of his glove and everything, getting ready to sick his posse on them. But they leave on their own volition and everything. And a cool bit that I really liked was that Nandor had to be invited into the club, and the night bouncer actually had to do that. Be like, yes, I formally invite you in. That was a cool little bit. I love that they go into the traditional vampire things that way. And I know I know I kind of harp on that, but it's kind of refreshing to see this kind of traditional take, even when it's used for these comedy purposes. So I was wondering if him telling them to get out, would they be mystically repulsed from the avenue? But they weren't. They just walked on out, and we see that he's messing around with the hat on. And what happens? The club blows up. And I'm like, yep, kind of deserved that. So the rest of them kind of bat out, but Colin is left to just fucking book it by himself because he can't do that. We then see that Nandor apologizes to Guillermo and decides to, well, not turn him into a vampire, but fly around with him on the city. He's like, hey, is that the Empire State Building? What? Over there? And he drops his familiar. I mean, granted, a familiar could be replaceable pretty easily, but you gotta watch it. I mean, Laszlo and Nadja have gone through like 2 already, and you've got a ninja familiar with the Baron running around your house, and you've had this dude for 10 years. It's gonna take a while to train someone up with that. So we see him then in the hospital, and we see Nandor have a kind of nice moment with him calling him a friend, but deciding, screw that, that sounds too sappy, wipes his memory of that, and they start to go out. We see that Simon is also there, and Laszlo has found the hat, and he's just, oh, right, hey, you crispy piece of shit, takes the hat, and the last little gag for the hat is that he keeps putting it on and off, and we see that every time he puts it on, Guillermo starts to die. Like, his monitors start flatlining. He's like, boop, boop, boop. And he decides, okay, never mind, and he keeps the hat off. So, it'll be interesting to see if that hat reappears in any other kind of gags that they have later on in the show, but I hope that it doesn't. A great thing that this show has, especially from the pilot episode, is it knows when its jokes need to kind of stop. Like, they're like, all right, here we go. It's kind of a thing that South Park sometimes, they drag it out too long. Here, I think they find a good bit of being like, okay, here's this bit. They go through it, and it doesn't take up more time than it needs to. So I just can't wait to see where their next kind of plan is to try and take over Staten Island and New York, because they're running out of options, and if they're going to have to deal with Simon in the future, that's going to be trouble. And I don't know if they're equipped with that. We've seen that they're equipped to deal with werewolves, but there are only 3 of them. They're going to have to bolster their numbers. So hopefully when Jenna pops up at some point, that'll add some interesting new power dynamics to the mix. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.